And hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship 4 from Barcelona. That's Paul Ciano, Marshall Sutcliffe. Thanks so much for coming along for coverage here. We're just about to get things underway with our very first round of action. We just got to watch Paul Rietzl do a little booster draft. I had a chance to chat with him, so we'll get into that in just a minute. His opponent on the other side of the battlefield is going to be Jarad Calabrese as we head down to the feature match area here. And this is, of course, where all of that hard work is. This is the first time you get to apply it in the tournament setting, and you can see our players in the feature match area here all set and ready to go. That's Jarad. Jarad's from the United States, and this is actually his second Mythic Championship. He played at Mythic Championship 2 in London, and then he re-qualified for this by getting 5th at GP Tampa Bay this year. So
okay,
really
so
impressive
having a pretty
run.
solid year, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to re-queue. It is not easy, so good for him. Now on the other side of the table, he's got a heavy hitter here to kick things off. That is the Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl from the Ultimate Guard Pro Team, one of the best players on the planet, full stop. And I will say, he has not brought his weapon of choice to the table. He is very unhappy with how his draft went. He felt like he got a little bit trapped there. There wasn't a lot of ways out for him.
Yeah. The draft was definitely very difficult to navigate because, you saw him first pick snow-covered forest, kind of trying to signal that this is what he wanted to be. But then, he didn't really see the snow cards flowing in pack 1, and I think that's just kind of how the packs broke, because in packs 2 and 3, you saw a ton of snow cards go late, and actually nobody ended up in snow, which is really surprising. There's almost always 1 or 2 people with a little bit of snow going on in their decks, but there are no snow drafters. That's why, the conifer worm, we saw 4th, 5th pick. We saw a bunch of those frostwallas, and, I think if Paul got to kind of do this draft again, had he ended up in a blue-green snow shell base, his deck would have been much stronger.
Now we do see what is effectively a blue-red mirror match here, Paul, between our two players, but this is the one card that breaks that mirror. It is Lightning Skelemental, but it's going to get hit by Lava Dart. Oh, brutal.
The worst possible.
Now, no 3-drop or 2-drop, though, from Paul Rietzl means that Jarad has his time to do whatever he'd like. That was a nice mana advantage there for Paul, but he isn't really able to capitalize on it. And, of course, he's quite happy to just not get hit by the Skelemental. It is very tough to get hit by. Here's Goblin War Party for Jarad. So if Paul had any idea on sitting on that exclude, which is exactly what he did, that is going to be a hit to that game plan, as it's effectively going to build out the board here for Jarad without actually being a creature card.
That is extremely awkward, holding up that exclude and only to have your opponent put pressure onto the battlefield, but not in the form of an actual creature spell.
So brutal. But nice follow-up here for Reitzel. He's got the Ravenous Giant. He's going to put that down and ship the turn back. Now, that is going to comfortably dominate the board as it sits, but as we know, it does have a drawback. 1 damage per turn to Paul Rietzl on his upkeep. That can add up pretty quickly, and it looks like Jarad at least has a way to sort of keep it away. But look at this. Jarad is going to take the offensive here. Maybe he just wants the card here as well from his Phantasmal form. This is going to put Paul to the test. He can flash back Lava Dart right now to kill one of the goblins. It will not fizzle the Phantasmal form, but it would save him 3 life at the cost of a mountain.
Yeah, one of the scary things here is the fact that if you see your opponent doing something like this, you assume that they're probably on some kind of game plan here to just try to get your life total down super low. So Paul has to be thinking, what are the types of cards that in Jarad's hand?
This is Unearth on Lightning Skelemental. He did it. Oh, unbelievable stuff here for Jarad. Assembling his combo. Take a look at this. That's Lightning Skelemental plus Goblin token. Remember, that Goblin's a 3/3 flyer currently. And if it's going to hit Paul, which at least as it stands, he's just going to have to take it on the chin here. He's going to lose 2 cards and 9 life this turn.
Yeah, fantastic sequencing here from Calabresi here. Casting that form first, getting Paul to use that Lava Dart, and then following that up with an Unearth on the Skelemental to have that prevented from actually taking that 1 damage from the Lava Dart. So huge swing there.
Clever stuff there from Jarad. Also, Paul down to just 3 lands again, thanks to using that Lava Dart last turn, but he recognizes that, hey, even though he's on 10 life, his life total is ticking ever lower thanks to the Giant, and he needs to start piling in damage as soon as possible. So he's going to do that and follow up with, yeah, baby, Mana War to take down the untapped Goblin there, leaving him with just one left. So even with that flurry of fireworks there from Calabrese last turn, he is down to just a Goblin here, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. And Paul's hand is still fantastic. He's got the Firebolt in hand with an Exclude, so Jarad still needs to find some answers here. That Ravenous Giant is going to quickly eat away at Jared's life total.
And it looks like it's going to be Winter's Rest on the Ravenous Giant. That is a disaster. You know, that is a clock that will sit there and eat away at Reitzel's life total over the course of the game. And if Calabresi can come up with another big damage hit, he'll win the game. Right now, though, just a Goblin token's not going to get the job done. So Reitzel's going to kick things off by attacking in with Ye Olde Jellyfish Mana War, knocking Calabresi down to 12. And yeah, he recognizes how precious his life total is, and he's going to go ahead and use Firebolt to kill the last creature on the battlefield, that Goblin token.
Yeah, and he still has Exclude up for whatever threat that Jarad might play this turn. And then he actually found the answer for the Winter's Rest here.
And this works beautifully here because that Giant is very nice, or Cyclops, excuse me, is a very nice target here at 5 mana for Exclude. It's effectively going to take the entire turn away from Jarad.
Now you're going to see Bogart and Dragonheart. Paul actually drew that on the previous turn, but set it up by keeping up the Exclude first. Now he's going to play the Dragonheart, sacrifice the Giant so that he's not going to be taking additional damage every turn, and crunch in for 6 here.
This is beautiful here from Reitzel, and it could set up a win next turn with another creature and no action here from Calabresi. Let's see if he can fight back.
Oh, that was a nice one. I think that was an Igneous Elemental from Calabresi, which would be fantastic here. He can use it then to, you know, deal with the Manowar that's in play. Of course, he can't kill the Dragonheart, given that Paul can sacrifice the Manowar to turn it into a 4/4. So Paul should sacrifice Manowar here to save the Dragonheart, keep that in play. And yeah, now it's close again. I mean, there's a 4/3 on the battlefield, so Paul can't close out this game anymore.
And it's a land off the top of the library there. Yeah, that 3rd toughness really doing good work here for the Elemental.
I'm actually really curious to see, because Jarad is currently at 6. Paul might actually just flashback Firebolt this turn to deal 2 points of damage to Jarad, to put himself in a situation where if he does top deck a creature, he can then sacrifice that creature and get in for 4 in the air. Because if he draws a creature next turn, he can't flashback the Firebolt, and he won't be guaranteed lethal damage.
So funny, because we were talking about this exact types of lines of play here from Reitzel. You saw it, Paul. He sees it as well, and he says, I'm going to put you to 4 and force you to draw something. Reitzel knows that he just doesn't have a lot of options here, and he will lose this race straight up. So he's going to burn that Firebolt upstairs, put Calabresi to 4, and see if he can draw something. Really, any creature off the top of the library would get the job done, assuming that Jarad doesn't have another way to interact.
And that's the thing. If I'm Calabresi, I'm attacking here and putting Paul on a 2-turn clock and forcing him to draw a creature, because if Paul draws a creature, the game's over anyways.
Yeah, this is check, recheck.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a Minotaur.
Paul
that is not going to do it. It has to be a creature off the top of the library, and it's another land for Reitzel. He cannot find what he needs. He really didn't need much to win this game. Now, he is technically still alive, assuming that Jarad can't get that double strike active on the Minotaur.
But now he has to chump block the Elemental here.
Really bad spot now.
Oh, that's a Lava Dart as well. So yeah, I mean, Jarad can just use the Lava Dart here to get the Dragonheart off the battlefield here, and that should be game 1.
That is, in fact, game 1 going to Jarad Calabrese. Well done by him. Good sequencing there, cool stuff with the Lightning Skelemental. Paul put himself in the best position possible to win, but couldn't quite get there. His deck failed him.
Yeah, I mean, that Igneous Elemental was huge, was a huge, huge play that turn. And yeah, I mean, Paul, you even saw with the Firebolt, that's what you just see. Paul, we knew that Paul was going to do everything that he could to give himself the proper number of outs to actually win that game. And, you know, he just couldn't find a creature in that turn.
That's right. A little unfortunate there for Reitzel, but well played by Calabrese. That is game number 1 from our first feature match of what is going to be a great and long weekend of Magic for you. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more from Barcelona. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, I've got Paulo here who has 13 top finishes under his belt and is going to crack this pack of Modern Horizons for us. Paulo, you like this format?
I do, yeah. I think it's fun. The drafting is interesting and the game plan is usually cool.
All right, so we're going to lay out these cards here so everybody can play along at home, kind of figure out what your first pick from this pack will be, and just tell us a little bit about why. All right, so what are you seeing as you're laying some of these cards out?
All right, so Answered Prayers is a very good card. I think it's the best white common. White decks are usually aggressive, have a bunch of creatures can trigger it. Not a card I'm looking to first pick, but I will be happy to play.
All right, let's get a few more out on the table here. We've got a Goblin War Party, a Rhyme Tender, Stirring Address, not really interested in that. Spring Bloom Druid, pretty critical for a few strategies.
Yeah, I like the Druid because it enables a bunch of different things. You can, it finds no mana, it finds splashes, it puts a land in the graveyard for the green-red card. So I think this is a pretty good first pick. You can go in many different directions.
All right, well, let's see what else we've got. We've got a Lava Dart, Windcaller, Aven, Mind Rake, no, Diabolic Edict, no, Choking Tethers, no, and now we're starting to get into some of our uncommons here. All right, what's it going to be? Force of Virtue. Okay, Paula, what do you like here?
Well, Force of Virtue is a very good card. I think this is a battle between card and color, because I think white is... I don't like the white strategies. I like the green strategies a lot more. But I think Force of Virtue is enough of a better card that I'm willing to just stake it and play what I perceive to be a worse archetype just to get to play with such a strong card.
For you, if you had your choice, what would be the color pair that you would most like to be in Modern Horizons draft?
I think the best decks are the very good blue-black decks, the ninja decks, but they don't come together very often, and they are kind of narrow because the blue cards aren't as good. So yeah, if I'm choosing my deck, it's gonna end up being a blue-black deck, but I really like black-red because I think both colors are very good, and green is good too. So I don't truly care as long as it's not white.
All right, well, we're taking a white card here though, right?
We are, because I think it's enough better than Spring Bloom Druid that... It's a combat trick and also pumps your team, and white is go wide in this format, so it really fits what the deck's trying to do.
All right, here we go. Force of Virtue, pack one, pick one.
And welcome back to the booth here in Barcelona. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Thanks so much for coming along for coverage. So we've got one game under our belt. We've got 3 days to bring you over the course of the next of this weekend. But for now, we're just getting things kicked off. We've got Paul Rietzl lined up against Jarad Calabrese. And so far, Jarad up a game. So impressive stuff for him, playing in only his second Mythic Championship against a player who's got one of the better resumes in the field, full stop.
Yeah, that splashed Lightning Scale Elemental doing a ton of work. I mean, Paul had the Lava Dart for the first one, but did not see that Unearth coming, which did a ton of damage. Got him for 6 and got 2 cards out of Paul's hand, but it was a really close game. And Paul had a few draws there at a creature to try to give that Dragonheart flying to close out the game. But I think both players played that game exceptionally well. And yeah, based on what I saw in Game 1, it is not surprising to see Jarad here again at a Mythic Championship.
All right, underway here in game number 2. Finally, Paul Rietzl has a 2-drop. He's got the Orcish Hellraiser to kick things off.
Yeah, Paul might not be happy with his deck, but if there's one thing that his deck can do is, it's got a solid curve. Good amount of 2s, 3s, and 4s with the pair of Mana Wars. However, the Hellraiser is a little bit awkward here, given that Paul's only other play in hand is a 3-mana card.
And he drew another one for the turn. He drew that Tribute Mage, and he had the Dragonheart. I think he also has a Mana War in his hand, so a little stacked at 3 where, yeah, that's rough. He would have definitely preferred to have one of his slivers or something on 2 so he could curve out properly. Here's Watcher for Tomorrow, probably the most red card. Like, wait, what does it do? We're used to seeing that mechanic on, well, traditionally it was on lands, for a small cycle of it, but it looks like you can put it on a creature as well.
Yeah, it's got the hideaway effect when it comes into play. You can look at the top 4 and hide a card underneath, and when the creature dies, you get the card in hand. So
when it leaves the battlefield.
When it leaves the battlefield. So you get a lot of value off of this. So definitely not something that you want to Mana War.
Right. Paul perhaps wants to Mana War the Orcish Hellraiser on the other side, but we'll see what he wants to do. Unfortunately for Paul, it looks like he does have at least, I believe he ended up playing 2 2-mana artifacts, the Amorphous Axe as well as the Talisman that we saw. I think he has 1 in his hand, but it's always a little awkward if you if you have it in your hand and then you have to play the Tribute Mage. It's just a 2/2.
Yep, definitely.
All right, so he's going to offer up the trade here, though. Hellraiser for Hellraiser, and Calabrese says, sure. We'll each take 2. There's the talisman and the land for the turn. So he does get to kind of curve here. And he's going to go ahead and make sure he gets his value here from the tribute mage. This will get him the axe.
Yeah, it's always a dicey situation when you do have that talisman in hand and you have only that one other 2-mana artifact left
I'm
in your
shocked
deck.
it wasn't on top of his library.
Right.
You know? A nice combo, of course. The axe on to the mage itself turns it into a formidable threat.
Yeah, not a ton of targets in the format for Tribute Mage, at least for limited.
No.
You have, of course, the cycle of talismans, and then you have a handful of cards, Lesser Masticore and the Amorphous Axe being, you know, some of the common targets that you get with Tribute Mage.
Altar of Dementia for this guy. I'll go for rares. I'm in.
Yeah. Paul definitely does want a second red source, though. He does have Ravenous Giant in hand.
Yeah, that would be nice here if he could peel a mountain off the top of the library, especially given that Jarad did nothing. He simply passed the turn back at this point.
Yeah, really interesting to see. Taking a look at his hand, it looks like, yeah, we have a bunch of lands here along with a Pondering Mage, so really looking to try to survive this turn. He does have that blocker in play, but Paul has a lot of action here, so a lot of different options. Definitely don't want to use the Mana War, but can't cast the Ravenous Giant. Those are the 2 things to consider. So he might just run out Goblin War Party just to get a bunch of 1/1s on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. And Jarad with the assist there.
And Jarad might actually just go for... Did he have the Skelemental? No, he actually did not have the Skelemental in hand. So one thing that I was curious about there is, you know, he had the Vista. You know, he could have considered trying to get a little extra value given that he has the Pondering Mage in hand and sandbag the Vista, run out all your lands, play the Pondering Mage, put the best cards that you want on top, and then use the sacrifice effect to shuffle your deck with the Vista.
Oh, I like how you think. That's nice.
Maximize.
In the meantime, it is turn 5, and that means Pondering Mage is going to hit the battlefield here for Jarad. And even if you don't have Vista shenanigans, it is still very nice. Wow, Pondering Mage into another Pondering Mage here.
I don't think we're going to see a shuffle
spells.
here.
Yeah, I'll keep those.
Yeah.
And this is going to be really tough for Reitzel, and you can kind of see some of the downside to his deck here. The Mana War looks awkward.
Yeah, Mana War looking really, really bad here, given that Calabrese's only played Enter the Battlefield card advantage cards. Yeah, I mean, he's going to start having to get to work with, you know, just whittling away at Jarad's board here. So wouldn't be surprised to see an axe being equipped to one of the creatures and then Paul just starting to attack. Alternatively, could see maybe, oh, it looks like he's going with the Dragon Speaker and just going to start clocking for 4 in the air.
Yeah, Dragonheart for 4, like turn after turn after turn is going to add up
That's
quick.
huge. And also keep in mind that Paul has that axe in hand. So he can also run the axe out next turn. He can then equip and sacrifice a goblin to, you know, I mean, Jarad might just be on a 2-turn clock here. We got 4 in the, yeah, that's a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, it sure is. There's the axe hitting the battlefield. So while Jarad may be tempted to just keep running out Pondering Mages here, and he may in fact be priced into doing so, he does need to find a way to interact with this flyer. And it looks like he's found one. Yeah, in fact, he's going to take a turn off here and just pass the turn back. He's got Phantasmal Form in hand now, Paul.
Yeah, so curious to see what now Paul does here. With all the mana that Jarad has up, will Paul go for the equipped sacrifice play here? Because, you know, Paul, I believe, saw that Phantasmal Form in Game 1. And also keep in mind that Jarad cast Pondering Mage and chose not to shuffle. So you know the cards that he drew are going to be very, very relevant here. So Paul might actually, you know, sense that as, you know, a sign of strength and just choose to play out more creatures here this turn instead.
Oh, yeah. My red alert would be...
Right. Alarm bells have to be going off.
Something's going on over there. Close game 2 here. This is the next 2 turns will probably decide it. Paul deciding how he wants to manage his risk. That's kind of what he's great at. And it looks like he's going to kick things off with a blade back sliver.
Yeah, and I can see an equip here, but maybe a no attack, or an equip on maybe one of the goblins in an attack.
That's interesting.
You know, and give Jarad the card.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. I mean, he does need to get rid of that Watcher at some point, right? Like, I suppose he doesn't need to. He could take the Bogard and Dragonheart line, but yeah, he's just going to go ahead and pass the turn back.
So he's going to pass the turn. Keep in mind, you know, the Amorphous Axe does turn the equipped creature into a changeling. And with the Bladeback Sliver, if Paul just empties out his hand, he can just start, you know, going to town on Jared's life total and just tap down his creatures to deal damage.
Man, we just have to say how great is Paul, right? Like, perfect. Like, he just stranded all that mana in hand from Jarad.
Right, and Jarad, you know, has the Pondering Mage, but he's kind of committed to this plan because he knows that if Paul gets in that hidden with the Dragonheart, I mean, you know, a lot of these red decks just have reach,
right? But now
There's
Manowar looks good, right? Now we can just send Pondering Mage packing, and it's going to take an entire turn, and suddenly Jared's going to be Pondering Mage flooded.
Right.
Because this is not about value anymore. Now it's about getting in for damage for Reitzel.
I now imagine Paul is just going to get in with all of the creatures here.
Yep. I'm just continually so impressed by Reitzel. You know, just his ability to suss out situations perfectly.
Yeah, I am no longer impressed because this is just kind of what I expect from him, you know.
Oh, wow. Man, your kids are going to have a rough, Daddy, I got an A, not good enough.
It's going to be tough for them, for sure. Only expect perfection.
That's right. Okay, so we are going to see that Watcher for tomorrow die here, which means that the card under it is going to go into hand. And I think it was Lightning Skelemental.
Yeah, but not looking very good here because Paul is the aggressor.
Right. He's also down to just 2 cards in hand, which would go away. Ooh.
Yeah, and I think Paul's just amassed too much of an overwhelming board here. I mean, you know, Jarad can run out a Pondering Mage, and he's going to need to find a removal spell, maybe? Something like a Lava Dart or a Firebolt, because things are going to be tough. He does have an Unearth that will allow him to put an additional creature onto the battlefield for a very cheap cost. So if he Pondering Mages into a 1 or 2 drop, along with that Unearth, he can put 3 permanents onto the battlefield.
And look at this. Here's the exclude in hand for Reitzel that says no, sir, to that Pondering Mage coming back down, and even gets a card for Paul. Wow, he has played this beautifully. That one turn where he's just like, equip, go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine being Jarad and being like, what?
Right.
I just played Pondering Mage onto a board that I was already a little bit ahead on, and I kept everything.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, you just play enough, and Paul did have a little extra information, right? Given that Jarad did play Pondering Mage and kept all 3 cards on top, you have to expect that he's got something there, right? It's either an instant speed removal spell, or it could very likely be that Phantasmal form that he saw in Game 1.
Which is exactly what he played around and exactly what he had.
Right.
Incredible. Really great stuff from Reitzel. He's going to force a game number 3. It looks like we're going to pop down and see what's going on over here on one of our back tables, though.
And it looks like we have a Slivers deck here going up against green-white splash black deck here.
Yikes.
I see a Genesis. Anytime I see a Genesis in somebody's deck, I always wonder if they have Spore Frogs in their deck to get that fog loop going.
I can't help but wonder that, too.
Yeah.
I always think that. Genesis, a very slow but very powerful effect. In fact, he can, well, he looks like he skipped right over it here, but he does have a Genesis in his yard now, so he can start looping through and grabbing, well, right now, that Spring Bloom Druid.
And Guillaume's got kind of, he started out the draft with probably the best possible sliver that you want for the red-white slivers deck, which is the Cloud Shredder sliver. So he started out with that, and he ended up with a good amount of slivers, but he was under the impression that somebody else was into slivers, but it's just everybody was just unhappy with their deck and randomly took slivers. So you do see a lot of these like somewhat aggressive strategies that just happen to have a handful of slivers in their decks.
That's funny. We've seen a lot. Like Reitzel has that, and it looks like Samuel has a little bit
and
of
Marcio
it too.
took a bunch as well.
So he was right, kind of.
Right.
Looks like he's going to magmatic sinkhole away that wall, though, and that was really kind of holding off a lot of the attacks because Guillaume looks like he's ready to rumble, sending all 3 of his creatures into the red zone here.
Yeah, and the 1-2 punch here is what's extremely important. Having the Lancer Sliver along with the Cleaving Sliver just makes blocking impossible.
It is devastating.
It looks like we're just going to have some chump blocks here.
Wow, just to try to stay alive. And even then he's taking 4, going down to 3. It doesn't feel like he's going to have much in the way of outs at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to scoop him up. Now this one looks like it's just about in the book, so why don't we head back to our main match here where we have Jarad Calabrese and Paul Rietzl ready for game number 3. Yeah, that was a scoop right at the end of that game from Samuel Marti.
Yeah, that definitely looked like one of those like ideal curve out sliver draws, right? Changeling into sliver into removal spell.
Yeah, and you summed it up. That 1-2 punch, if it gets to stick on the battlefield, it makes combat impossible.
Right. Now the downside is if somebody does have a removal spell and kills that Lancer Sliver, all of a sudden you just have a bunch of X2 slivers that just trade with all your opponents like 2-mana 2/2s.
Looks like Jarad may be a little bit in the tank here on whether he's going to keep this hand. Nope, they are ready to go. So Vista here kicks things off for Jarad. He's going to pass the turn back to Paul, who just has a mountain.
And Vista, it's one of those cards where it has exceptional value in this format, partially because, there is that archetype where you care about having lands in your graveyard. So, I've talked to some pros, and they've definitely told me, yeah, Prismatic Vista, if I'm red-green, I'm first picking that card a lot of the time because it just turns everything else on. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that it's also just a great mana fixer.
Yeah, those effects go up so high. The cycle lands, the uncommon cycle lands in red and green are premium cards.
Yeah, for sure.
It's an instant speed way to enable those type of things, and it does it at almost no cost to you.
And part of the reason why you don't see something like an Evolving Wilds in this format at common.
Had to make it a rare, huh? All right, Orcish Hellraiser here to kick things off for Jarad. So he's got a 2-drop. Does Paul? Looks like he does.
Yeah, he's got a Talisman here, so you can curve out nicely.
Doesn't block super well, but
No.
But Jarad is going to want to pay that red mana for the Echo cost on this Hellraiser.
Yeah, but it always feels bad to get your creature with Echo. What just happened?
He must have Lightning Skelemental or something.
Oh yeah, Lightning Skelemental doesn't want to get it Lava Darted or maybe an Unearth.
He just feels like getting in it. Wow,
What?
okay,
He has
another
2
Prismatic
Vistas?
Vista. All right, bud. If he gets a mountain, oh yeah, he's Skelementaling
he
for
is excited about
sure.
this.
You can tell with the pace of play, and I'm sure Reitzl's like, "Welp, I'm about to take 6."
Yeah, but like at the same time, keep in mind,
toss away a Hellraiser.
This was a 2 for 2, right? I mean, to be fair, you're taking 8 damage, which is and he got a pretty aggressive deck. But at the same time, Paul's been kind of the slightly more aggressive side, and you just lost a Hellraiser here. There probably would have been another opportunity at some point later to fire off the Skelemental while preserving that 3/2.
Yeah, I feel like Jarad probably valued the fact that the mountain was tapped really highly,
right?
But probably didn't need to. Paul really does have to tap his mana here to keep up with what you're doing, even just with the 3/2.
Yeah, especially with that Hellraiser in play.
Yes. That's the 3/2 that I was, yeah. But, and the Skelemental has trample as well, so it only needs to just touch you. You know, just a one little point of damage.
Just a little tickle, and you got to discard 2 cards.
That's right. Yeah. Something tells me that Lightning Skelemental is not a specialist in little tickles. It's more of a bash you on the face type of a creature. But yeah, that's all you need.
Oh, look at this. Paul actually drew both of the 2-mana artifacts. So this is actually like fairly easy. He's discarding the Tribute Mage because it's not getting anything.
Getting his value.
And also the X. But, I mean, things aren't looking that bad for Paul here. I mean.
No. The real thing I'd be worried about if I were Paul is Unearth, right? Because that's a game plan, right? Where you could see him taking such a crazy line. Like, oh, I'm just going to sack my creature, just get you, and then just get you again.
And I would understand this a lot more if he had the Unearth in his hand.
Let's see if he does. Nope.
He does have 2, I believe, in his deck, so maybe putting himself in a position where he's like, this is my game plan, but.
Instead, he's going to lean on Prohibit here, but now Well, he's fallen a little bit behind on board. Paul's the one with the creature left standing, and the cost of sacrificing that Hellraiser, not paying the echo cost, has come back to bite Jarad a bit here. Now, we'll see if his long-term game plan can come together, but he did pay a steep cost for getting in with that Skelemental.
Yeah, he will get a target here with the Prohibit. I mean, Jared's probably just prohibiting anything that Paul's playing this turn.
I do.
Yeah.
If I'm forced to run a Prohibit, which I try not to do, I will
Right.
counter literally anything. So the Sliver's going to get prohibited and sent to the yard, but still Reitzel's the one sitting here with the Dragonheart. He's also kind of cheekily keeping up mana for Exclude, as it was a devastating sequence in game number 2 for Calabresi. But interestingly, in the meantime, Paul has found a copy of Lava Dart as well. So he actually has protection from that combo that he was worried about, though he will know at this point isn't in hand. And Calabresi, wow, going for the Viashino Sandstalker, not really what he wants to be doing here, but life totals are important, so Reitzel's just going to get rid of it.
Whenever I see my opponent with Lava Dart, during sideboarding, I look at all the 1 toughness cards and really just try to evaluate, like, is it really worth playing this card? Because just getting Lava Dart, it just feels so bad.
Totally, especially on your 3-drop. That was
And it's
brutal.
easy enough to kind of build your deck in a way where you can kind of play around the Lava Dart, right? It's like, okay, I have, 2 1 toughness things. Maybe I'll board them out to really reduce the effectiveness of that card.
Wow, 4 spells here seen off of this Watcher for tomorrow for Reitzel. So he's going to have lots of great options. I see one of them is just straight up Mana War, so that's a likely candidate, but there's also a Ravenous Giant in there.
Yeah, and he's got
and
Chiller
a
Pillar?
Goblin War Party. Yeah. The filler pillar made the cut.
The
apparently.
filler pillar, yeah, because he does not have a lot of. He's got 3 snowlands in his deck, so
Really?
not something that you're super excited about.
So is it a hiller pillar?
It is. Yes, Marshall.
All right. Well, in for 2 with the Dragonheart, and also let's not forget that.
Look at this value.
This
He's
is a
going to
must,
bounce
yeah.
the Watcher and get that card. Look at that.
Was it the Goblin War Party that he
Yeah.
ended up selecting? Okay. Wow. Look at this little sequencing here from Reitzel. He's pulling further and further ahead. And the fact that Jarad is effectively out of gas has left it so that Reitzel can do plays like this. Normally, you have to kind of reserve your Mana Wars for your opponent's creatures to keep them off balance and keep the damage flowing, but he's just doing value Mana Wars at this point.
Yeah. So now I expect a Winter's Rest to go on the Dragonheart here, followed by the Minotaur.
Okay, all right. So fighting back here for Jarad.
But given
But
that it is a 3-2, Paul can still happily attack here and see if Jarad wants to take the trade. But Paul just has a lot more action going on now, given the value play he had last turn with that Mana War.
Okay, well, first things first, he wants to see what he can hit here with this Watcher.
And keep in mind, he can get that
sacrifice
card.
it,
He
yeah.
can get that card whenever he wants with that Dragonheart on the battlefield.
Tapped but not dead.
Right.
Didn't see what he grabbed, but
Looks like he had 2 options there. There were a couple of lands and a couple of red spells.
and has he found a Hellraiser here as well? Yes, he has. So once again, things starting to swing pretty firmly in Reitzel's direction here, as the Spinehorn Minotaur on its own is really not doing much, especially with Paul at 12.
Yeah, something like a Phantasmal Form would be a nice thing for Jarad. Get him for some damage in the air with the Minotaur. Draw the card. An Unearth for that Skelemental would not work, given that Paul does have Lava Dart in graveyard.
Is it time to just run out the party? No, it's Factor Fiction here for Paul Rietzl.
The classic main phase Factor Fiction.
Going for the full Val. And the reason that he's doing this is because these lands really matter. He's trying to build up to 7 lands for the Entwined Goblin War Party, and he's already got 5. So he's going to get 1 here.
So we're going to see a 4-1 or a 3-2 split here probably.
Wow, he went for the full 4-1. Reitzel, can he deny the 4 pile of value?
Cards. I know it's just lands, but man, that is...
Look at him. Great split here for Calabresi. And Paul's like, I just can't. I just can't.
Yeah, you cannot give up that much value. It's also just great, of course, given that he has that Goblin War Party in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think Paul was really realistically viewing that as 2 lands, right? Like the 2 lands he needs to entwine War Party 2 turns from now. And how important that is to his game plan rather than some type of notion of, well, it's 4 versus 1.
Yeah. But of course, you know, having access to those extra lands does mean that you can do some, you can have some pretty fancy turns, right? Let's say Paul draws another Mana War and then bounces the Watcher and then plays the Watcher again. Totally. Now that he has all the mana in the world, he has cards like that he can draw.
This has been a really fun mirror match. Not quite a pure mirror, but a little splash from Calabresi kind of knocked that out. But still, similar game plans. Also, both kind of chippy decks, right?
Yeah.
Like neither of these are just like clean archetypes that we see, you know?
Just blue-red aggro. You know, you're not really seeing the draw 2 stuff really happening a lot from either player.
And look at this. Looks like Reitzel is fine trading off the Mana War plus the Lava Dart here for the Minotaur, which actually does sort of take away some of the game plan that he had going forward with the Goblin War Party, as it's going to set him back another turn. But, you know, Reitzel also probably recognizing that there's a few ways he can lose this game, and the Spinehorn Minotaur is on that list, yeah. Cycle Aven, you're like, oh no, don't do it. And then they just start getting you.
The old Goblin Champion off the top.
Yeah, that is not what Jarad wanted to see here. Just a low impact card and another land drawn here for Reitzel. So the big question is it time to just deploy the War Party and see if he can get the job done versus effectively no board by next turn? Or is it better to just wait?
He has lethal this turn. If he just chooses to pump his team and Jarad has nothing, he can get him for 7 points of damage and then sacrifice the Hellraiser for the last 2 points of damage.
That is lethal. That is very tempting. So he's actually considering whether to just go for it now or set up for a more robust kill next turn that is less interruptible.
The question is, how much does he lose if Jarad has a removal spell here, right? If he kills the Watcher, he gets the card back. If he kills the Hellraiser, still takes 2 and then 3, which puts him down to 4.
You know, and this is, of course, all being weighed against how likely is he to die next turn. And it feels almost impossible. Yeah. I mean, of course, there's also the chance that Jarad plays something that thwarts the game plan. So you do have to consider that as well. But look at this. I mean, he's attacking for 5 down to 4, and he'll be adding 6 power of haste to the battlefield next turn, plus the extra on there. And look at this.
Is also
Hellraiser he's going to set up now. This is 4 damage sitting on the battlefield that he can pop off anytime he wants thanks to the Dragonheart. And there's really no way out at this point for Calabresi.
Yeah, and Paul just playing it patiently here as well.
And that's going to do it. Jarad's going to extend the hand, and Paul Rietzl is going to win round number 1, 2-1. He made him earn it.
Yeah,
you know, you got to say that. Calabresi put together some pretty cool stuff with that Lightning Skelemental, but solid play there from Reitzel ultimately led him to victory. So well done to Paul there, kind of cleaning things up.
Yeah, Paul getting a lot of value here from those cards. I mean, just really incremental edges, right? You know, you had the Watcher, the interaction with the Mana War, and also just the fact that Jarad just took an extremely aggressive line, which kind of just put him down a creature, right? That 3-2 would have been a very relevant body to just kind of slow things down. I think ultimately Paul still would have ended up winning with the Factor Fiction, getting a lot of value, but you know that ultra aggressive line means that, you know, he just took a lot of unnecessary points of damage in the middle points of that game.
That's right. You know, he had the time that he needed, and he found the way. You don't want to give Paul Rietzl any wiggle room. He'll take advantage. That's going to do it here for round number 1. We'll head over to the desk.